There we go. There we go. All right. I think we're live. Let me check. All right. All right. All right. So, quick disclaimer for those that don't know. I'm Jake, obviously. Jake's Adventure Garage. Today, around 13 minutes ago, Vanquish just dropped a... Oh, there we go. Messing that up. Vanquish just dropped a new release. And that new release is... What up, Jackson? The VRD Mullet. So let's go ahead and take a gander at that, because that's very interesting. So let's see here. Boom. Yeah, so there it is, the VRD Mullet. What is a mullet? Well, a mullet in terms of the RC crawling world is where you have a portal in the back and a straight axle in the front. So taking a look at this, the I don't think any other manufacturer has released a mullet, to my knowledge. Not any name brand. James, it's happening. So it does look like it's available for pre-order. I don't know how many they have in stock, but yeah, so you can see this rear axle is a portal and the front axle is a straight axle. So yeah, it does look like it has a stamped chassis. Maybe that is carbon. I'm not sure. It looks like it's aluminum in the pictures, but it is at a price point of $420.69, which is kind of funny because you know, a mullet is business in the front, party in the back. So adding that little bit on there is kind of funny. Based on the pictures, it looks like it comes with the kit and maybe this clear body. So it does say that right here in this banner, I guess is what you want to call it, wheels and clear body, wheels and tires not included. But it looks like it comes with the clear body, the half cab, for what would appear to be a stance body, but it's got a weird different front on it. Like the stance doesn't have this grill marks in it. So it looks like the banner says unassembled builder's kit with the body, wheels and tires not included. That's a little confusing, I think. It should say unassembled builder's kit with clear body and then have like a semicolon and state wheels and tires not included. So yeah, you can do 4 interest-free installments with shop pay of $37.97 a month, or from shop pay $37.97 a month. It's interesting. So as you can see from the picture, this is obviously a VRD kit since it says VRD Mullet. We do have servo on axle, much like the regular VRD kit. What's very interesting here is that in order for you to make a mullet configuration, you have to have a either reverse front or rear ring and pinion, meaning the diff, right? The gears inside of the axle. Either that has to be reversed in the front or the rear, or the trans has to be updated because the rear axle has an additional set of gears in it. So if you don't have a reverse ring and pinion, or as you can notice here, this diff is flipped, right? The third member is flipped, so instead of having a high pinion like you're used to, it's a low pinion. A low pinion is less desirable for a few reasons, primarily because it's easier to drag on the rocks, but yeah. So basically what happened here is in order to reverse the rotation of the axle or make it go forward with the front axle so they both spin in the same direction, you have to flip that rear ring gear or the front ring gear. So what I've done in my personal mullet is I've actually bought a reverse gear. So you can go to Amazon and you can let's see, reverse AR44. Yeah, so what I ended up doing was buying a reverse AR44 gear, like you can see here, maybe. Should be an option somewhere, maybe. But you can see this is a reverse gear. So basically what it's going to do is it's going to spin the other direction as a regular AR44 or F10 diff. So instead of the ring gear sitting on the left side, it would sit on the right side, or vice versa. I don't know which side it sits on. But it would essentially rotate the diff, the ring gear, to the other side and allow you to run a high pinion third member, keeping that drive shaft up higher. So again, the reason that you need to do that is because the rear axle has the additional gearing in it, which reverses the rotation of the tires, or changes the rotation of the tires to be in reverse. So there is that. Let's see what else we got in here. So it does look like it is a carbon spec VFD, so that means it should be coming with a VFD trans that is machined. He said I might have to. I mean, it's fun. It's a fun truck. What I did with mine is I ended up putting a brazen front line on a regular VRD carbon build, and then added the F10 straight in the front, and then added the reverse gear in the rear. Now, if you add the reverse gear to the third member in the rear, you will have to Dremel out some of that third member, and you'll also have to Dremel out the plastic axle housing. So if you buy the aluminum F10 housing, you don't actually have to Dremel it out. It comes pre-machined with the ring gear being able to go on either side of that housing. And I don't have one here, or I would show it to you directly in front of me. So for the plastic one, and it's really kind of interesting because now you can actually run full aluminum axles once Vanquish drops the F10 for the front. So anyway, the trans is carbon spec VFD, meaning that it's got the 21.5% overdrive, and it's probably all machined gears. For the money, I would expect that. It comes with the stance half cab body on the business end. That's funny. So I am excited about the half cab. I do have wanted them to release that for a while, so hopefully we'll be able to buy that independently very soon as well. Actually, let's just see here. New releases, just the Mullet kit, which is something else that's interesting is we don't actually have the Phoenix in here as a new release. The re-released Phoenix, maybe they didn't count that as a new release. I don't know. Yeah, so we don't actually have the option of buying the half cab yet. I assume that's going to come later. But yeah, so these pictures indicate that this is a stamped aluminum chassis, which is not carbon fiber, so you'll have to update that. And just a note there, I did weigh the carbon fiber versus the aluminum chassis, and the carbon fiber chassis rail is exactly half the weight of an aluminum chassis rail, which is a lot in terms of these tiny trucks. So yeah, I mean that's a fair point. That's a fair point. Makes it much easier, just buy the kit and then throw whatever aftermarket chassis you want on it or utilize it. Now, this is interesting. It comes with F10 axles, obviously. The F10 front axle utilizes the underdrive gear set of 8 and 33. And then the rear axle uses it says overdrive gear set of 8 and 32 plus overdrive portal gears. So the issue with this is that this is actually still an underdrive gear set because 8 and 30 is stock. The smaller your ring gear, the faster it's going to turn. So both of these 8 and 33 and 832 would be considered underdrive in the same axle configuration. Meaning that if you had two straight axles and you ran 8 and 32 in the front and 8 and 33 in the rear, you would actually be lowering your overall axle or diff speed compared to the transmission, because the stock is 8 and 30. So if we were to do quick math on that, let's see, diff gear calculator, so we'll just say 104 millimeters on the tires, and then we don't want that. We don't want the RPM calculator. We want the gear ratio calculator. So the ring gear in this instance is 30. That's what comes on most Vanquish trucks. The pinion gear is typically always 8. So you're looking at a 3.8 gear ratio of the stock ring and pinions. Now with the 32 and 8, you're actually looking at a 4.0 gear ratio. So with the 8 and 33, you're looking at probably a 4.1. And then typically your overdrive gear is going to be 27, because again, the lower the number on the ring gear, the faster it's going to spin. So it's 3.4. So you can see that you know, it's very interesting to do the math here. So if we looked at this, let's see, our front is going to be a 4.0 and the back is going to be a 4.1, which would be, just in diffs, you're looking at roughly it's like a 3 or 4% overdrive just in the difference here in the diffs. And then in 8 and 30 configuration, you're looking at about an 18%. So you have 21.5% from the transmission in the front. So plus that 3%, you're looking at 24%, and then the lightweight 21. Yep, we got that. What is the overdrive portal gears? So let's look at those and see what that actually is. over. So the F10, which would be these more than likely. Standard gears, yes. So the Portal Overdrive gear set is 2028, which is a 1.1 or 1.4 to 1 gear ratio. So realistically, the rear is going to be 4.1 plus 1.1 or 1.4, which would be a 5.5 rear ratio. And then you have a 4.0 in the front divided by 5.5 if I'm doing the math correctly, which would bring you to about a 28%. Yeah, it's about a 27% overdrive just in the front axle versus the rear axle. And then you have another 21%. So you're looking at 27 plus 21. The real overdrive percentage, according to the calculator here, is roughly 48% maybe. Whereas I think it says here is 34%. So just to kind of recap on that math, right? So we took the 8 and 32 gear in the front, which ends up being a ring gear 32 and a pinion gear of 8. You're looking at a gear ratio of 4.0. The gear ratio of 8 and 33 is a 4.1. You're adding an additional overdrive gear set in the rear, which is a 1.4. So you take 4.1 plus 1.4 equals 5.5 divided by, well, divide 4.0 divided by 5.5, and you're looking at 27% overdrive just in the diffs and the rear portal gears, if that math is mathing. Plus the additional 21.5% in the transmission, and you arrive at roughly 48% overdrive. I think is how that works. So it's definitely interesting. I see a note here that it recommends 475 hubs in the front and 350 in the rear. Yes, that is correct. So I do have to run 12 millimeter hubs in the front and like, I don't know, 6 millimeter hubs in the rear of my mullet to accomplish the same thing. Otherwise, the rear is wider than the front due to the additional portal housing right here, and adding that width to the axle itself. So again, the stance half cab, I'm really excited for this. Again, I don't know, this doesn't look like the original half cab or the original stance body. Let's see what that looks like here. So yeah, as you can see, this is pre-painted, so this doesn't, I mean, looking at that flat nose with the sticker on it, it actually looks different. It almost looks like it's more pinched. It almost looks more pinched. And then this one has the molded in cowl hood, and this is like, it looks like a smaller cowl hood. So the rest of this is pretty typical, right? The trans is typical. The chassis looks like a VRD chassis. The axles are all parts that are already created. Low center of gravity. Yep. And so why would you want a mullet, right? The primary purpose of having a mullet is to make sure that your front end is actually shorter or lower to the ground than the rear end. And the reason that you would want that is on steep inclines, we'll just say you're at like a 60+% or 60+ degree, incline, you want the front axle and the front unsprung weight, which is what that is, to be as close to the ground as possible, keeping that truck on the ground. And so sprung weight is bad because if you're at a 60-degree angle, and I don't know if this is 60 degrees or not, but if you're here and your truck magically unloads, it unloads the sprung weight, right? It's going to want to suck that truck back and pull it back on itself. What the straight axle front does here is it keeps the center of gravity closer to the ground, and in turn the weight. So I can see this truck being very popular. One of the first things I would do personally is I would order the kit with the stubby and then put the BTA on the front axle with a short servo. So something like an SDRC 650. I don't really like the 700s personally. I've burnt a couple of those up. I've never had a problem with the 650s. You could run the reefs, the short servos there, or half-size servos is I think the technical name for them. So I mean, you're basically looking at a regular VRD with a mullet configuration. Let's see what else we got here. Updated geometry to perfectly balance the mix of different axles. I wonder what that means. VRD S25 chassis. So maybe this isn't the regular VRD chassis, which is why it's only in stamped aluminum and not also in carbon fiber. VRD chassis, blah blah blah. Yep, we've got all of that. It does look like it comes with all machined gearing, which is very nice. Suspension. So the interesting thing here is that it looks like it utilizes 90mm shocks all the way around, which typically your straight axle trucks come with 90mm and your portal trucks come with 80. So not putting the 80s in the rear and running 90s in the front and rear is an interesting pairing. I also assume it does say that these are aluminum threaded bodies, dual O-rings. I wonder if they're the new O-rings. I got some of those to test, by the way, so we'll see how good they do. Performance focused. Business in the front with the suitcase and the party solo cups in the rear. That's fun. Just fun little details like that. So here's some interesting things. It says the front axle gear ratio is 4:125 to 1. The rear axle gear ratio is 4:725 to 1. But based off of the math that we just did, it is actually like a 5.5 rear axle gear ratio, I think. 833 is 4.1, and then the additional 1.4 added by the portal gears, I mean, if I'm doing that math correctly, it's 5.5. So, I guess we'll see. Somebody can check my math. I'm more than happy to be wrong. Wouldn't be the first time. So. We do see a 13-tooth pinion, which is interesting because I don't know that we've seen that before. Typically it's a 15-tooth pinion with a 56-tooth spur. However, we're coming in from the factory with a 13-tooth pinion and a 52-tooth spur, which is what I typically drop all of my trucks down from a 56-tooth to a 52-tooth. For brushless motors, it's easier to get the bottom sucked up, the bottom plastic protector, I guess, for the motor. If you don't have the 52-tooth spur, some Outrunners and some of the brushless motors will actually go past the motor mount, and you won't be able to screw that up. Appreciate it, Chaz. You're the man. The wheelbase is 320 or 12.6. I don't know what the wheelbase is on a VRD stance or carbon. They are the same. Let's see. I thought it was the same, roughly 12.6. It's a 12.67. So it's 2 millimeters shorter. The wheelbase is 2 millimeters shorter. 320 versus 322. which is not really it's not really a whole lot, right? I mean, it is in the tiny truck world, but to put it in perspective, something like the RC four-wheel drive Hilux body is like a 11.8-inch wheelbase. So, and then here you can see the difference between the front and rear axle width, hex to hex. I really like that they put these details in the website. This is information I think that they should be, every manufacturer should be dropping, not just random facts that may or may not be necessary. So there's a lot of description here. A lot of this is just regurgitated from the additional information above, right? But really some key takeaways that we can glean from this is that obviously it's got a straight front, portal rear. The rear third member is flipped, so they didn't actually remake the third member or make a reverse ring and pinion for it. So you will have a low pinion drive, and that's where the drive shaft is on the bottom of the diff instead of on the top, making it low pinion instead of high pinion. And you can see that right here in this picture. You can see that the drive shaft comes in to the bottom of the axle instead of the top where it typically does. Again, you have to have that because you're adding an additional gear, essentially reversing the rotation of the tire in the rear. That's really the only major change besides shortening it 2 millimeters, and I'd be curious to see if that's shortening it from the front links or the rear links. I didn't really see anywhere it said that. So the new S25 frame rails, which are optimized for the unique combination of axles, provides 6-degree angled flat skid, and I think that the stance is 8-degree angled flat skid. Let's see, 24% overdrive. Electronics, it doesn't. I don't actually see where it says that. Yeah, it does look like a pretty good kit. Oh, nope, it's right here. 6-degree flat skid. For some reason I thought it was 8-degree before, but it does look like it's 6 degrees. So that they retained that. Yeah. So I actually I ordered one, so we'll do a review on it when it gets here. The molded chassis, excuse me, the molded chassis components and skid plate place the lightweight VFD trans as low as possible. Yeah, this is all pretty typical stuff. Chromoly universal axle shafts. Yeah, and that's really the big change that we're seeing here is the 2 millimeters being shorter, and it doesn't indicate that I can see, and it might somewhere, if they're removing the 2 millimeters from the front or the rear, and then also the straight front axle with the portal rear. So it is exciting. I was honestly hoping for something different. I don't know what I was hoping for, but due to where the economy's at, I can understand there's not a ton of releases for a variety of reasons, and it's primarily the economy. So yeah, what do you guys think of the new kit? Are you gonna buy one? James said he's gonna buy one. Chaz, you gonna get one? He said Redcat. I mean, technically, Redcat, I don't think made that, right? The Redcat is actually a It's a joint effort from some other company, which is why it doesn't look Redcatish. But I am excited to get my hands on one of these bodies. Like I said, I think that I guess this would be the third major change. Welcome in DTM. Is the body? The body is different, right? The half cab is not just a stance cut in half, stance body cut in half. I mean, it's different. Or at least it looks different. So I really wish I had a wig, because if I had a wig, I'd be wearing a mullet wig right now, just letting it all hang out, you know. I mean, even a blind squirrel gets a nut every now and then, Chaz. So, personally, like I said, if it were me, I would buy the kit with the stubby kit and then immediately move put an outrunner or something in it. And hey, I'm glad I can bring you entertainment. All right. I would certainly do that, and then the only other thing I would do is wait for them to release the aluminum housing, because those F10 straight housings, the ears on them break pretty easily. So I would certainly get the aluminum housing immediately, and then some brass C hubs or some brass hubs for it, and you're pretty much ready to go. So I also saw that Hobbywing just dropped a new motor. So yeah, well, yeah, I have a couple of straight aluminum housings to order as well once they are released, and I assume that they're probably going to release them relatively quickly. Right now, my assumption is that they made a big batch and they're probably at the anodization office or process, and once they get back from that being cleared or blacked out, they'll probably list them. So now, the real question here: have you guys ever used a mullet? Right? Has anybody in the chat used a mullet? Like, are you happy with it? Mad about it? Like, you know, what experience do you have with a Mias axles? Actually, I saw a guy last weekend had them, and he had some Capra Mias axles on his 3rd gen Capra, and it was really interesting because they came double jointed. So you actually got a lot more turning radius out of it, because the axle shaft or the U-joint, since there was 2 of them there, it wouldn't bind as easily. So I think really the biggest struggle with the mullet in general is that the breakover angle, right? Personally, I would probably run right around a 12 to 12.2 inch wheelbase with it, because the front axle not being a half-inch lower due to the not having the portal, it kind of limits it in a lot of breakover scenarios. So I put with my mullet build, I just took a VRD carbon, added the F10 front, and then here recently I added the brazen frontline chassis to it, which actually moves the skid forward like 28 millimeters and then also drops it down a little bit lower. That helps significantly, but you still can tell that front has a half-inch less clearance, because in certain breakover situations you just don't have the breakover ability that you want. if that's a word, right? And so where I can tell in like a comp situation, and this is really where comps become problematic, because most comps you have a lot of winching. And the reason that you have a lot of winching is because it's very hard to make a course that has a lot of challenges for everything, right? You're either going to challenge a portal truck, or you're going to challenge a straight axle truck, or you're going to challenge whatever build, right? And no build is going to be perfect at everything. It's all, there's give and take to every adjustment or every different spec that you can have, right? And so, you know, maybe you want to run a wider offset. Well, that wider offset's going to hurt you trying to get through the gates, but it'll help you side hill or whatever, right? It'll help you climb V notches, or maybe it'll hurt you in the side hill or V notch department. Not the side hill, but more the V notch. So, you know, you have a give and take there, and having the portal in the front actually hurts you in terms of your climbing ability. So your 60-degree incline, the portal will move your axle away from the incline and therefore increase your center of gravity, making it easier for your truck to fall back on itself, whereas the straight axle won't. So with the comp, it is what it is. Pick your truck, live with your choice. Yeah, I mean that's exactly what it is, right? I think that the competitions are, there's some very serious competitions, and then there's fun competitions. For the fun competitions, it shouldn't matter, right? For the serious competitions, it almost makes more sense to eliminate the build factor and just force everyone to run a specific truck with specific whatever, kind of like you know, I did with the basic class, where you can't make a lot of changes. It's more driver than it is truck or whatever. So, you know, there's a lot of different factors involved with it, and I think that you know, really it's just getting down or boiling down to driving your truck, right? Build the truck, drive it, tune it, tweak it, you know, take some advice on how you want to tune and tweak it, but from there, unless you just spend time driving it, it's not really going to matter if you have the best truck or the worst truck in the world. So yeah, there it is, folks. Let's see if we can find a calculator, a gear calculator portal. Just make it wide. So yeah, I don't care about that. We want to calculate. We don't want to calculate transmission gears. We want to calculate that. I don't know that there is one. Same stuff. Same stuff. Hurricane performance. Injura, blah blah blah. This isn't really helping either. So, yeah, we'll just go with the. So I believe what it said, and we'll go back here. So the rear front straight axle utilizes the 8 and 33. So the front axle was 4.1. I thought the front axle was 4.0. So it's 4.1 because you got 8 and 33. So 33 for the ring gear, 8 for the pinion is 4.1, and then the rear diff is an 8 and 32 plus overdrive portals, which we found were a 1.4. 1.4 to 1. So what was that? 32 and 8. You're looking at a 4.0, so it would be a 5.4. 4.1 divided by 5.4 equals 70, really 76. So you're looking at a 24% overdrive. Yeah, right around 24% plus the 21.5 in the transmission, which puts you at around 45%, 45.5%. So I was about 3% off, because I thought that the front was the 8 and 32 instead of 8 and 33. So this is 4.0, 4.1, and then the addition of the 1.4. And again, I think that that's right. So I don't know quite how they got 34%. Maybe I don't know. I guess we'll see at some point. Again, it says available for pre-order shipping in early October. So its shipping is a couple weeks away. Couple weeks away. And just to kind of reiterate, the big changes are the kit is shorter by 2 millimeter, which 2 millimeters is right there. So that is 2 millimeters, as you can see. Maybe 2.04 millimeters. So that right there would be the amount of length that it was shortened. The chassis was shortened. As you can see, we are at 0, closed. So not a huge change there, but a change nonetheless. Updated chassis. It comes with a half cab body and then a straight front axle. So those are really the only big changes. With the axle, you've got the different diffs, which is nothing new, right? It's already something that they've been released. I think that the 8 and 32 might be new. So if we look at the AR44 overdrive, I want to say it was 8 and 33. Oh, we were looking for underdrive, not overdrive. Maybe it's all one word. Yeah. So this would be the only one, and it's 8 and 33. Yeah, so the 8 and 32 is new, a new gear set specifically for this build. So it looks like there's 2 new things, really 3 new things for this build. The chassis, the rear diff, which is a 4.0 instead of a 4.1, and then the half cab body. Those would be the 3 things that are new. And then the assumption there is obviously that they're putting the new O-rings in those shocks, which again, I have a set. I am working on a video to test in, by the way. Middle of the winter build, yeah. Yeah. For sure. Kind of breezing over here and see if we missed anything, but I think that about sums it all up. Oh, the other interesting fact is that they put 90mm shocks all the way around, which is typically for straight axle trucks. So I would have assumed that they put 90s in the front and 80s in the back, but does not appear what they did. Required items, so tools, paint, tires, wheels, radio receiver, servo, motor, ESC, battery and charger, pretty typical for kits. The new Hobbywing motor, the 2-in-1 Fusion Elite, I believe is what it's going to be called, will not fit in the the stubby conversion. It is 48mm instead of 35mm, I think is what fits. So it's like 13mm too long to fit in there, which is quite a bit. So you're not going to be able to massage that. I mean, you could probably make some standoffs that are a little longer, but you would have to get a long input shaft and then cut it and then re-weld it or basically reattach it. So for those that are just joining us, welcome. The real question is, out of everybody, who's going to buy one, right? I already have a mullet, so I don't necessarily need to get one of these, but this would have been a good configuration to be able to purchase when I decided I was going to make one. I would be very curious to get a set of these rails though and see how they differ from the other old version of rails. Yeah, you're right, it does suck. I agree. The 2-in-1 makes life much easier, plus it's waterproof. I've been known to like running my tiny trucks in the water, and so I would prefer to have something that is not going to get burned up, like an Outrunner or something in the water. And I don't know, I think the Holmes Hobby won't fit either. But the new Fury Tech is supposed to be short enough to fit, I believe. I don't know. I guess we'll see. Anyway, I'd like to see the difference between this chassis and the VRD chassis to see if the beds that I've made and other people have made will fit in this back half portion here. Because I don't know how much they added or shortened the chassis. It doesn't say. It just says that the wheelbase was shortened 2mm, but not the overall chassis length. At least I didn't see that in the details. Just says been optimized for new axle configuration, shock mounting positions. Well, that's nice. So instead of forcing the 80mm rears and the 90mm fronts, they basically just updated the rear shock mounting positions to probably compensate for that 10% or 10mm difference. This is a new logo. I don't think that I've seen this before. It may not be a new logo, but the universal shaft logo there, the VDI. Gives you 49 degrees of steering angle. That it does. And then when you leave out the little stop screw there and shave down the hubs, you get a little more than that. So I do like the fact that the body does appear to fit perfectly on the slider, so the slider does not protrude in front of it or behind it. That is a big thing, I think. I don't want the slider to be shorter than the body, so for the body to hit things, but I also don't want the slider to be longer than the body and be longer than necessary, so that's a really nice touch there. I'm sure that other manufacturers will start dropping carbon fiber rails. So I'm not sure if Vanquish will do that or not. I'm sure that they might maybe at some point. It would be a very good Trucks of Freedom and Trucks of Fortune thing to do, is add their universal color carbon chassis rails for those drops. So yeah. There it is. And then let's just go on and take a gander at this new Fusion Elite 2-in-1. So it's ultra compact at 48.5 millimeters. So at 48.5 millimeters, you're looking at it being 13.5 millimeters too long to go in a VRD stubby kit. So it kind of is a moot point there. However, looking at it, it does appear that it is somebody told me that it was 4S capable, and I'm trying to find that on the sheet here. Continuous power, it's a 50 amp ESC with 150 amp burst. It is 2 to 4S LiPo capable. Does have a 6, 7, and 8 volt BEC with continuous 5 amp current. Let's see, 2300 kV motor. Length of motor is 48.5, but again 13.5 too long. It's a 3.1 millimeter shaft, so it's pretty typical. Independent programming, back voltage. Continuous 5, I mean that's not much. 5 amps is not going to be enough to run your powerful servos. So I was hoping that it had a max amperage rating. I mean, this is basically like a 40 amp Rhino or a 40 amp Holmes Hobby ESC. So review. Yeah, it just says 5 amp. It doesn't actually say anything else other than that. Under the download, this is just rocket surgery here. Yeah, and it's a 5 amp BEC. That's going to be a letdown. So essentially, if you buy this 2-in-1, you also want to run a direct power servo. Yeah, the TF2, I mean, your trail trucks will be perfectly fine with these. I would run a dedicated or direct power servo for your comp trucks, but the 5 amp BEC will be more than adequate for most of your trail trucks if you're not doing anything that's going to wedge the front end. So, and in most of my trail trucks, yeah, boom, right there, 800 NSDRC. I think a lot of my trail trucks, I run the 500B from NSDRC because they're $65, and they put out, I believe it was 500 ounces or so on 4S. So, you know, this is at $125 plus 65 for the servo. I mean, you're under $200 for a servo, ESC, and motor. That's going to be 4S capable and do probably everything you're going to want it to do. So, now, yeah, there is another 2-in-1 servo, much like this. So let's go take a gander at that. Two. So we want to compare it to the Holmes Hobby 2-in-1, which is 2300 Chemi. It's basically the same. It's basically the same motor, right? However, the overall length of their motor is 50 millimeters. So this one is actually shorter than the 2-in-1 from Holmes Hobby. The 2-in-1 from Holmes Hobby is pretty much the same thing, right? It's a 4S capable ESC, so 2 to 4S, and then it is a bit longer, and it does have a 5 amp 7.4 volt BEC. So you know, did one copy the other? Makes you question things, right? Because it's basically the same exact thing. So just in a different body. Yeah, 500 ounces in a trail rig should be plenty. You're right. There's not a need to have 800 ounces unless you have a ton of brass or you have a like super heavy truck. So your typical trail trucks like my forest truck or the deer hunter truck or like a CJ7, if it's under 8 pounds, the 500 is going to do probably pretty fine. But if it's over 8 pounds, you're going to want something a lot stronger than that. And then to go with that, if you add more weight, you're going to want to increase your rod ends. So I would change over to the aluminum rod ends from either Vanquish or some other manufacturer. And then you're going to want some really strong links, because you will bend the links and break the rod ends, or stretch the rod ends if they're plastic. Again, this is on 8+ pound trucks, and you know, you can't really bash them, right? You get something heavy like that and you try and bash it, it's just, yeah. So anyway, where are we at? How long have we been doing this? We've been streaming for, it doesn't say. It does not say. I lied. 57 minutes. Almost an hour. So I'm going to circle back to the original intent of this stream, this random pop-up stream, and that's the Vanquish VRD Mullet here, right? So we found out that there's 3 new items, at least 3 new items. The first new item is going to be the half cab for the stance body, which is not the same front end wise as the stance that we see today, which is interesting. The second new item that we saw is the rear diff is an 8 and 32 instead of an 8 and 30 or the 8 and 33 underdrive option that's available today. So the higher the ring gear number, so the stock 30 tooth ring gear is going to be the standard, we'll call it, ground 0. And then if you go to 31, 32, 33, the higher the number, the slower that axle turns, or the tires turn. Now on the other hand, if you go lower, right, so if you change from an 8 and 30 to like an 8 and 29, 28, 27, it'll actually increase the speed of your axle or your wheels. So the interesting thing here is that we put underdrive gears in the front and the rear. We made a brand new underdrive gear for the rear, and it's 8 and 32. And then the third new thing is the frame, or the chassis. It is apparently a new design called the S25. Mullet length. Now, the interesting part here is that this chassis, or really this kit or truck, is actually a 12.6 inch wheelbase, or 2 millimeters shorter than the regular VRD, which again is not much, right? 2 millimeters is a very minuscule amount. So at this moment, those are really the only 3 things that are new that we can tell on this kit. You know, personally, I was a little let down on what they released today. However, I know that a lot of people don't have the ability to build the mullet, right? So I built a mullet out of a lot of different things. However, if the kit was available, I'm sure there would be more people utilizing mullets. And now that the kit is available, it is more popular and produced for the mass public. So it is exciting in in that aspect that they did release this, because, like I said, I don't think any other major manufacturer has released a mullet before, to my knowledge. So I know Josh and Brandon have talked on the Vanquish live stream about building mullets with like the 410 Pro or the 410 Ultra, the original or one of the original kits that they released. The Origin was the first kit, and then the Pro and Ultra were the second kits that Vanquish ever released, and they stated that they did mullet builds with those. I know I've seen a lot of questions in the live streams in reference to mullets. How do you do it, etc., etc. And so them dropping this is really a good thing for the hobby, the community, whatever you want to say in general. So just know that if you buy the kit, those are the three major upgrades that you're getting. The different body, or the new body with the different front end at minimum. You're getting the brand new 8 and 32 underdrive gear for the rear portal axle housing, or the rear axle housing, and then you're getting the new chassis. So it doesn't really specify the drop in wheelbase of 2 millimeters, whether that's the front or the rear. I guess we'll find that out at some point in the future. But yeah, the only other thing is that their calculation here, and again, I can be wrong with that, but the calculation at 34% overdrive is not the number that I arrived at. I arrived at roughly 45% overdrive. And so looking at it, the front axle is using an 8 and 33 underdrive gear set, which is a 4.0 final drive, if you will. The rear axle is using an 8 and 32, excuse me, a 4.1. The 8 and 33 is a 4.1 final drive. The rear axle is 8 and 32, which is a 4.0 final drive. Adding the overdrive gear set for the rear, right, adds another 1.4 final drive to it. So 1.4 plus 4.0 is 5.4. Again, if my math is mathing, that is roughly a 24% overdrive just in the axles. Now you add the 21.5% overdrive for the transmission, and you're looking at roughly a 45% overdrive. Maybe it was 43, so it's like 44, 45%. So it is a lot of overdrive, but for a comp truck, you need it, right? I think that 30% overdrive in a comp truck should be minimum. I don't really like anything over 50%, so I stick to the 45-ish% range of overdrive. Now, there are some downsides to that. Obviously, depending on the truck and how you have it configured, side hilling can be a downside because the rear is moving slower, breaking traction and falling down. But there are upsides to it as well. So it's really just a matter of where you want to be. And this, again, may be the right number. I may be way off here. So, like I said, I've been wrong before. Outside of that, personally, if I were to buy the kit, I would buy the BTA kit with it, and then I would also buy the aluminum rear housing and the reverse AR44 gear from Amazon here for $18, because now I am turning this rear low pinion third member into a high pinion third member without having to do any dremeling on the axle. You will have to dremel out the third member. It's only money, right? It's only money. Might as well order one. Might as well do it. I don't have any affiliation with Vanquish, so even if I did provide a link to this from the Vanquish website, I wouldn't get any sort of benefit from it. I can give you the affiliate link through AMain, but you know, Vanquish Direct is probably the answer because of their point system. So yeah. Outside of that, I mean, you know, it's another day in the office. So Does come with all machine gears, as I said before, and again, all of this other stuff is pretty typical, right? I mean, we've seen this stuff before. There's nothing new. So there it is, ladies and gentlemen, the new Vanquish VRD Mullet. I wish, like I said, I wish I had a wig so I could have my long mullet hair. If I had long hair, it'd definitely be in the mullet configuration. But yeah, there it is. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Vertex. What is the Vertex? Is that the new Redcat? I don't think this is the right Vertex. Oh, yep, that's it. So I have one of those on order. It actually looks pretty good from the pictures, right? So you can tell this was a collab and not 100% done by Redcat for a few reasons. The first reason is looking at these axles. I mean, these axles look pretty good, right? I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I think that they did a good job here. Whoever designed them. The rest of the truck is the same way, right? I mean, you've got 4-link geometry, which is exactly what you want. I assume it's 4-link geometry in the front and the rear. Obviously, this is the rear, and look at this axle housing. I mean, this is what you want to see right here. You've got very minimal obstruction areas. The links have little rounded areas on them. We've learned we're not using cap screws anymore. We're using buttons now, which is a good thing. One of the big complaints of a lot of different manufacturers. So yeah, I think that this could be a good thing. And then you've got the metal drive shaft. I assume it's a requirement because of the wheels there, right? So let's look at the front end here. Yep, the front end is 4-linked. Servo on axle. And again, we're at buttons instead of caps. Very, very nice. It does appear maybe, no, that's the screw. I was thinking maybe that's got double jointed axles or dual joints there, but I'm not sure on that. The shocks appear to be all metal, which is nice. I assume needed for that weight. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited for it. I think that this could potentially usher in a new line of thinking for Redcat. I hope, maybe, because the Ascent and the Ascent Fusion was less than desirable, right? I mean, I'm not, yeah. So, right. There it is, Drave. There it is. You're basically collaborating, or somebody else is building it, and you like it enough to slap your name on it and sell it, or slap some of your own stuff on there, right? I think that's probably what happened. But I don't know for sure, right? I have no idea. So I would be curious to know if these wheels are plastic or not, because that's one of the first things you're going to want to update is the plastic wheels, hubs, whatever. It does look like they have a splash of blue in them, probably a sticker. And then I would immediately replace the tires. Wheels and tires would be the first thing that I did. The other thing is, I believe it comes with a Fusion, right? Some sort of brushless motor. Maybe it's not the Fusion. Maybe it's some other brand of motor. I don't. Let's see. I don't remember. Tech specs. Yeah, electronic brushless. This is the kind of information we don't care about, right? So if you look at the specific details here, I mean we've got a lot of details, right? We got gear ratios, pinion size, spur size, wheelbase, overall ratio, rear ratio, etc., etc., etc. And then you come over here to the Redcat, and it's like, here, electric brushless. So, I have a warning. Warning on the stream. And you earn 4,000 Redcat points. What's each point worth, or each 1,000 points worth $1, maybe $40, or each, excuse me, $4, or each 100 points is worth $1, making it $40. So I see they added a firm. Just go on there, buy now, pay later. Are you going to order one of these, Drave? Well, that's interesting. When underdrive is engaged. So it does have a selectable overdrive in the transmission, it appears. Or additional gearing to come with it. So wheel width 48 millimeters. That's not the overall track width. 400 millimeters sounds right. 3/4S lipo. Blah blah blah. Yeah, so that's the big problem there, right? And ultimately the issue is the drive line, because these plastic housings aren't going to last long. What I found with the SCX6 is with the weight required for the build, really just in general, even with my RC Speedy chassis on it, which removed a ton of weight from the stock chassis, I still have problems with the axle housing flexing. And where the problem lies, it does look like it is potentially machined gears, and this would be your selectable overdrive here. The issue that I had is that this housing right here flexes right at the diff and makes the ring and pinion skip teeth and ultimately break and wear teeth down. So I do need to upgrade my housings to some aluminum or whatever housings on my 6. I just haven't done that yet. Oh, nor have I changed the ring and pinion for the Vitavon stuff. So I don't know. Being a collaboration with somebody else, I have more fidelity in the truck. However, Redcat's Redcat, and all businesses are here to make money and sell things at the lowest cost. So it's really hard to say. The Fusion Fusion 8? The 2-in-1 Fusion 8? No. It needs to be geared way down for the SCX6. Otherwise, it just gets way too hot in the thermals. So I don't know. The interesting thing here is that in about 20 days or so, when we go to, so probably a little more than that, but we're going to Crawlapalooza in Disney, Oklahoma, which is at Grand Lake. I am going to take the SCX6 down there, and I'm going to run it quite a bit. So it will be good to see just how well or not that motor does in that area, because I haven't run it a whole lot outside of the video where I was running it in the rock quarry. So that area is big enough and has enough good rock that I can really put it through its paces. So yeah, the issue is that you don't want heavy wheels. You don't want any rotating mass on these 6 scales, because it does just provide way too much stress on the driveline, which will in turn break it. And I found that out firsthand. So it's kind of a different learning curve, if you will, coming from like the 10 scale world to the 6 scale world, because it's you're getting more scale in terms of 1-to-1, but at the same time you're having to make adjustments to the 6 scale that you wouldn't have to do the 10 scale because of how much bigger it is. So that's interesting. It comes with Ackerman blocks. I like that. It is double jointed axles to improve the turning radius. I like that as well. The only downside here is that these are probably, I don't want to say proprietary, but initially we won't see a lot of manufacturers making these. So if this axle shaft isn't strong, it's not going to survive and then you're just going to have to keep ordering them and ordering them and ordering them in order to keep running the truck. So yeah, does look like it has a clipless body system like the new Axial Coyote, which I do have, and I will be dropping a video on probably Thursday, doing an overview on that. So anyway, I do have to drop. We just wanted to jump on here and kind of go over the Vanquish VRD Mullet that was just released. Obviously, I don't have one. I'm not part of the cool kid group or club, so you know, it is what it is. We will get there, though. We'll get there one day. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope you have a great Tuesday, and until next time,